My wife came out as asexual, and that is why we do not sleep together. I asked for a divorce, but now she refuses to accept it. Instead, she says I can have unlimited access to her friend. My wife, 29, and I, 34, have been married for 4 years. Up until a year and a half ago, everything was great. Our marriage started falling apart. When there was a big drop in our physical intimacy, it was not a lack of emotional closeness. We still cuddled, had deep conversations, and enjoyed being around each other. But every time I tried to take things further, she rejected me. We have always been good at communicating, so I made sure to bring it up early. We talked and made some changes, hoping to fix the issue. About a month ago, she came home from a therapy session and told me she believes she is asexual. That is why she has had no desire to be intimate lately. I was confused because, in the beginning, our physical relationship was great. Hearing her say she is asexual was heartbreaking, because everything else in our marriage is wonderful. Of course, I would never pressure her into anything. So we had a long discussion about our future. I told her I think we should get a divorce. She immediately refused. She said we would figure something out but would not discuss it anymore. I did not know what to say, so I dropped it. 3 weeks passed with no change. I realized I needed to do this for my own well-being, so I filed for divorce. She was served the papers last week. When I got home from work that day, she was acting completely normal, like nothing had happened. I asked if she had signed the papers. She flat out said no and told me we were not getting a divorce. Then she changed the subject and kept acting like everything was fine. I thought this was insane. I stopped her and said I could not stay in a marriage with no physical intimacy. I explained that I was being more than fair with the divorce. She could keep the house we paid for in cash. I would take all the debt, which is not much. We would split our savings and investments in half. She could keep 2 of our 3 fully paid-off cars. Thankfully, we do not have kids. I love her and want her to be comfortable, and I have no problem starting over since I make a good income. But she still refused to talk about the divorce. Then 2 days ago, I came home and went to our bedroom, only to find my wife's friend, 27, lying in our bed completely naked. I immediately shut the door, apologized, and went looking for my wife. I found her in the kitchen and asked what her friend was doing in our house. She told me she was there for me. I put the pieces together and told her I was not going to sleep with another woman in place of the woman I married. She insisted that I could sleep with her friend whenever I wanted and that her friend had agreed to it. I could not believe she had taken things this far. I went back to the bedroom and asked her friend to leave. Then I packed a bag and checked into a nearby hotel. Since that night, my wife, her mother, and her sister have been calling me nonstop, but I do not want to hear anything they have to say. This feels like some kind of trick. I just want this to be over. Does anyone have advice? Is this some kind of scheme for alimony? Should I just contact my lawyer and push for the divorce? Update 1. I will try to keep this short because I feel overwhelmed, and I probably will not post another update after this. Last night, my wife came to my hotel, and we talked about everything. She told me the full truth about what has been going on in her mind. Some of you guessed this in my last post, and you were right. She has always been asexual. Her whole family has known since she was 16. This is the reason her last long-term relationship ended after 3 years. Her ex broke up with her when their intimacy dropped to nothing after the first year. She told me that at the start of a relationship, when emotions are high, it is easier for her to have sex, but she still has to force herself. I knew her past relationship ended due to differences they could not resolve, but I never asked for details, and she never told me. After a lot of apologies and crying, she admitted I was the first person she could tolerate being intimate with for so long. She said she enjoyed it a handful of times, but most of the time she felt like she was being violated. Hearing that broke me. I started blaming myself for not realizing what was going on. She said she tried her best to make me happy for as long as she could. She still does not want a divorce. She does not want the house, the cars, or our savings. She just wants me and is willing to do anything to keep our marriage together. She even offered to sign a legal agreement to prove it. As for her friend, she was there during my wife's last breakup and helped her through it. When I brought up divorce, my wife turned to her for advice. Her friend suggested that she open the relationship for me, but my wife did not want me sleeping with random women. So her friend volunteered herself. My wife thought it was a perfect solution. That led to the whole disaster at our house. I will not comment on her friend's appearance because it does not matter, and I do not blame her. My lawyer got back to me, and you were all right. I do not need my wife's permission to go through with the divorce, but I will have to wait if I want to push it forward. I asked her why she lied to me for so long. She said she was tired of being rejected after coming out as asexual. She convinced herself that she could force herself to be intimate. The hormone tests, the therapy, all of our attempts to fix things, they were just her stalling, trying to buy time to find another way or build up the strength to start being intimate with me again. Our conversation ended with us holding each other in bed and crying for hours. No, we did not sleep together. She begged me to put the divorce on hold so we could find a solution together. Then she left my hotel room. Now I'm sitting here alone typing this. I thought my wife and I shared everything, but I guess I was wrong. I do not know what to do. After my wife and I talked, she asked me to meet her about a week later to discuss things again. I had been staying at an extended stay hotel since that night with her friend. When we met at our house, we talked for hours. She started with a lot of apologies. She apologized for how she handled everything, for lying about her bedroom drive, and for not taking my needs seriously. Before I could say anything, she handed me a signed postnuptial agreement. She had hired a lawyer and had the document drafted, stating that she did not want anything, not the house, not the cars, not our savings. At that moment, I felt like the biggest jerk for thinking she was trying to trap me for money. I asked her if she was serious, and she told me to take the postnup with me and sign it whenever I was ready. It is still in my backpack. I have not signed it yet. I told her that I still believe divorce is the best choice for both of us. We both deserve to find someone who meets our needs. She still refused and begged me to reconsider. She started crying, and so did I. Seeing her like that was devastating. I told her that letting me sleep with other women was not a real solution. What if I develop feelings for someone else? What if I get one of them pregnant? Does she expect us to get rid of the baby? She said we would figure it out as we go and begged me to give her more time to find a way to make this work. I told her it felt like we were just going in circles, but she was desperate and pleaded with me to wait. We apologized to each other over and over. We kissed for a while before saying goodbye. That night I went back to my hotel. A few days later, I tried texting her, but she did not respond. I ended up calling her dad. For context, I have been avoiding her mother and sister because they keep saying the same things she does. Her dad told me she moved back home and has been locked in her room ever since our talk. She called out of work. He said she barely eats, barely bathes, barely speaks to anyone. He asked me what I was going to do, but I did not have an answer. He said he understood and told me he would always be there if I needed to talk. I went back to our house and most of her things were gone. The whole place feels empty. I have been sleeping in one of the spare rooms. In a couple of weeks, I am flying to my mom's house to spend time with my family and clear my head. I am still leaning toward divorce, but I guess there is no rush. Thank you to everyone who gave advice or showed concern. Seriously, I know we are all strangers, but most of you have been a huge help to my mental health. Also, my cousin found my posts on Reddit and reached out. He asked me to give him a shout out if I made an update. Love you, Virgil. Thanks for being there for me.